The Jacksonville Jaguars have traded the 25th pick to the Buffalo Bills. With the 25th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Dalton Kincaid, tight end, Utah.
Welcome into our instant draft reaction presented by Ticketmaster. I'm Maddy Glab alongside Bills insider Chris Brown. Well, night one was full of trades, and the Bills got in on one as well as they moved up to number 25 in a trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jags got number 27 and number 130. So with the 25th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Bills add an extremely talented tight end to their roster in Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. He's 6'4", 246 pounds, and man, this guy catches everything. So, Chris, why does he fit on this Bills roster? Why did the Bills need to trade up to go get this tight end?
Well, I think they saw the receiver run that happened right in front of them, 4 picks in a row from picks 20 to 23. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, all in a row, and it's clear that they felt that Dalton Kincaid was comparable in terms of a pass-catching talent, and I think Dallas was a genuine concern of theirs because they just lost their starting tight end, Jordan Schultz, to Houston in free agency. They had a hole at that position, and I think Buffalo said, well, the receiver value isn't right, but we want to help our offense. Let's pivot and go to a very strong tight end position this year, and they take the first tight end off the board, who is arguably the best playmaking tight end in the class.
100%. I mean, you see some of these wide receivers start to go off the board. This class really lacks that X wide receiver spot, and if you're going to put somebody in it or try to find somebody who has those types of traits and talents, Dalton Kincaid is your guy. So, Chris, in the tape that you've watched on him, what really stands out to you about why he's an elite playmaker and why he had so much success at San Diego and at Utah? Because he did play at 2 schools.
That's right. He did transfer from San Diego. He was a lightly recruited football player because he had a phenomenal prep career as a basketball player. He was a state champion in basketball, and I think that helps him now in terms of posting up, winning balls in contested areas, and then he can just flat out run. We don't have a 40 time on him because he had a back injury. That back injury, he was cleared medically for all football-related activities just a couple of weeks ago on April 12th, but there was no testing on him. I think if he had testing, he might have gone even higher. But this is a guy that had 70 catches for 890 yards last season in just 12 games, and he's had no less than 8 touchdowns in a season. This guy is a touchdown maker. 35 touchdowns in his college career. The only tight end in the country who had more receptions than him was Brock Bowers at Georgia, who is going to go top 10 in the draft next year. This guy is a playmaking, pass-catching tight end.
He played in 55 career games. This guy's the active leader, career leader among tight ends right now in FBS with 2,484 receiving yards and 35 receiving touchdowns, which Chris has already said. He had 19 touchdowns in 2 seasons with San Diego, so this dude is a complete playmaker. He's great with his hands. He can adjust to make a catch. His catch radius, he screams like a wide receiver in what you see when you turn on the tape on him. We would like to welcome into our conversation Greg Cosell, who is an ESPN analyst for NFL Matchup and a senior producer for NFL Films. Greg, it's so great to have you on with us as we break down the newest addition to the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills move up to number 25. Did you have a hunch that Dalton Kincaid would be on their radar at that point?
No, I didn't necessarily have that hunch, but I will say this. First of all, I really liked Kincaid on tape a lot. I actually watched him last summer, his 2021 targets, and I thought, wow, this guy is a really good player. He's essentially a receiver and a weapon, not a pure tight end. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, well, the Bills don't throw to their tight end a lot like some other teams do, but this guy's not just a tight end. Yeah, with Utah, he did line up attached to the formation, flexed a little bit wing tight end, and they did ask him to block at times. But you're dealing with a guy who's really a seam stretcher, a 3-level receiver. He can detach from the formation. They used him as their boundary X, the single receiver to the short side of the field. So you're really drafting a weapon in the pass game as opposed to a, quote unquote old school tight end.
How difficult do you anticipate him being as a one-on-one matchup in man coverage, Greg, based on what you see?
Oh, I think that's what he is. I think you're dealing with a guy who's a smooth, athletic strider. He's got speed. He's got looseness in the way he moves. He's a receiver, Brownie, and I think that with this kind of move, it's interesting because, as I said, he's more of a weapon than a pure tight end. But clearly, you don't make this trade up to take Kincaid if you don't plan on playing Kincaid and Knox at the same time. You just wouldn't do that. I mean, they traded up. It's not like they picked him, in the 5th round. Okay, we'll grab this guy. They traded up to get him. He's a receiving weapon, so he will be on the field at the same time Knox will be. And of course, that's not 100%. Nothing is, but it's not as if he's going to play 12 snaps.
Was it interesting to see the Bills go tight end here after you saw 4 wide receivers go one after another, and you saw that run on wide receivers happen quite quickly to the point where tight ends was your next best position, your next best option if you were looking for an elite playmaker on offense?
Well, Manny, I guess we'll never know that because we know that Brandon and Sean will say that this was the guy they had targeted all along because that's what every team says. So we don't really know whether they felt that the next wide receiver wasn't a guy that they wanted at this particular pick, or whether they felt that Kincaid was a guy they really wanted. Obviously, they'll say that. But, I think that the one thing about having multiple tight ends, and keep this in mind, the Kansas City Chiefs this year lined up with multiple tight ends, 2 and 3 tight ends, about I think the second highest percentage of any team in the league. And what that does to defenses is it forces defenses to have to declare something. Do defenses want to stay base because they view them as tight ends, or do defenses want to put out nickel, some form of sub defense, and then maybe you run the ball a little more? So I think Kincaid potentially create some positive opportunities for this Bills offense. But he was a player I really, really liked. It's funny, in my transition, I said that in some ways he can be deployed, and I don't want people to think I'm comparing apples to apples here, but I said he can be deployed in an NFL pass offense in a way that parallels Travis Kelce. And as I said, I'm not suggesting that he's Kelce. I'm just speaking more in terms of deployment and down the road potential target share. That's the way he can be deployed within the context of an offense.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm really excited to see how he looks in this Bills offense and really how they use him. Greg, thank you so much for helping us break down this pick. We've got Brandon Beane on with us now, so we've got to pivot over to him. But Greg, thanks so much for the insight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.